be.
Well, hello, you wonderful humans. Got a little bit of a late start today. I had internet problems, but we're back, and I wanted to live stream the full launch. Obviously, I only started streaming 8 minutes into launch, but on a positive note, the launch of the James Webb Telescope has gone surprisingly well so far. So yeah, I guess not surprisingly, but we all hoped that it would go well. But I know it's super duper early. Merry Christmas, you wonderful, wonderful humans. And we just launched $10 billion into space, so that's pretty cool. But I figured we'd hang out and see if the James Webb Telescope survives. Is my chat broken? Oh, there we go. Now it's working.
And separation confirmed here in the Mission Control Center, and the ignition of that upper stage. And Raphael Chevrier down in the fishbowl. So far, so good.
Yes, Rob, we have the confirmation of the separation of the main
Claire,
stage,
how are you
and
doing?
The ignition of the upper stage.
Hope nothing bad happens.
Is perfectly nominal. This is very important moment for us because it's always a challenge to switch on a cryogenic engine in space condition, and we are now at 220 kilometers of altitude. Speed is a bit more than 7 kilometers per second. As we enter now the second stage of the second phase of the flight, the upper stage is going to power for about 16 minutes to place Webb on its transfer orbit, and right now everything is again nominal, as the DDO just said.
And a short time from now,
the lack of excitement, but you know darn well they are all super duper excited. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing well. Bex, how you doing? Christina, Claire, Rebecca, Soundboard, Chris. Yeah, sorry, I wanted to live stream before the launch, but I could not go live. I tried to schedule the stream, and I could not get it scheduled. I couldn't get it scheduled last night. I couldn't get it scheduled this morning. But finally was able to actually go live, which was nice. So, yeah, we're here. We're a little late.
On the thermal conditioning inside the telescope and the way the rays of the sun would propagate and interact with sensitive equipment inside the telescope. Maintain this thermal conditioning is really key before separating this telescope. And in particular, we know that one face of the telescope cannot face the sun. That's why
good old energy drink.
And to produce these right thermal conditions inside Webb, a specific roll law has been designed, what we call the sawtooth approach. And if you are watching carefully to these images, you can see this animation. You can see that the upper stage is going 30 degrees on one side, then 30 degrees on the other side, going back and forth this way to maintain this perfect thermal conditioning for the telescope.
And so for those of you that don't know, James Webb Telescope, massive project. It was supposed to launch 10 years ago, and it got delayed by 10 years due to it being substantially more expensive and substantially more problematic than anyone ever anticipated. So it's launching today, but it's going to take about, I forget exactly what the time frame is, but it has to travel about 1 million miles away from Earth, which is going to take a couple months to be able to do. And during that time, it's going to be cooling and getting down to the temperature that it needs to operate, as well as unfolding and calibrating all of its mirrors and everything. So I think in total, it will take about 4 months for it to get fully set up and fully cooled down to the temperature and then get into orbit around the sun as well. So the big thing about this telescope is the piece that it kind of like looks like it's like riding on this like Star Wars-esque shaped spaceship. And what that is actually a big sun shield. So it's going to be blocking the sun and blocking the heat from the sun because it's going to be in orbit around the sun. All of my cats have decided that this is the time that they would like to try and destroy everything. See what they got going on.
Radiator will be released to prevent binding due to the cool down of the telescope's composite structure. The contamination control heaters will be enabled to protect instrument optics on Webb from any water ice condensation as they cool down. The actuator drive unit will be powered on. This particular mechanism helps with heater control of the fine steering mirror, preventing water ice condensation, later to be used to position each of the mirror's segments. All 6 reaction wheels and the wheel drive electronics will be powered on for Webb, and that will be the precursor to the attitude control system using those reaction wheels
Elku, how are you
to maintain
doing?
the proper orientation with the sun, as opposed to using onboard thrusters. Of course, fuel in those thrusters, very valuable. It's a limited commodity for the lifetime of James Webb's observations of the universe. We're 13 minutes, 55 seconds into the flight. Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations
I like that every
manager,
once in a while we
continues to
just hear a
report
very
nominal
French normal,
performance
which is
for
good.
James Webb.
So things are still going well. Scott, how are you doing?
Luce Fabregat from the European Space Agency. How is this trajectory?
Pray this unfolding works. This will unlock so much about our universe. It's gonna do so much. I mean, to think really that the Hubble telescope has been
The altitude is slightly
just
down. It's
getting so much
normal.
information, but it's obviously like
Really on
limited
the-
tech.
the
It was
line
launched
where it
forever
should be.
ago.
This decrease
And honestly, I think I forget what year the Hubble telescope was actually supposed to decommission. And then, hold on.
To benefit of the gravity effect and to increase its velocity until it reaches the thermal threshold. It's about to reach it, or even already reached it now. And it will
Apparently,
go
I'm
up
trying to
now
live stream
to
during the cat's rampage time, and it's a
the
freaking
separation
disaster.
Of the Webb telescope. It will separate the Webb telescope on a highly elliptic orbit, but still around the Earth. The telescope will be inserted on an orbit around the Earth with an apogee, a very high apogee above 1 million kilometers.
Trajectory nominal, as reported by Jean-Luc Voyer. You see him in that view, 185 kilometers in altitude.
He looks so
Some
tired.
4,500 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou, moving at more than 8 kilometers per second. Right on the plot, right on the trajectory, everything looking great.
How long have they been developing the scope? Since the 90s. The James Webb Telescope.
From the completion of upper stage ignition. It's shut down, and then about a
When
2.5
did
minute
they
delay
start
before Webb
developing
will separate. Observatory separation
James?
will be called out. You'll be hearing those calls and the initial calls from Carl Starr, the mission operations manager at the Space Telescope Science.
Construction began in
Johns Hopkins,
2004.
through solar array deploy and the declaration of a power-positive spacecraft.
After a long ride, it's been armed with a few
Webb, of
crucial
course, will be
tools that set it
traveling
apart
well
from
beyond
Hubble,
the
such
moon,
as an
to a distance
NRC
of about
cam,
1 million
or
miles away from Earth,
NIR cam,
settling
a
into
gold-plated
high elliptical
18-segmented
halo-like
mirror,
orbit
and a heavily layered sun shield.
And again, as we mentioned earlier, at the time of observatory separation, Webb will be at an altitude of approximately 864 miles, statute miles, traveling some 21,000 miles an hour. We're about 8 minutes away from upper
Okay, sorry.
stage shutdown. The stage has performed as planned. No issues reported. The launch
Like my
occurring
internet's
at
dying again. That's
12:20
freaking
Greenwich Mean
fantastic.
Time, 9:20 Kourou time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern Time on this Christmas Day.
Very smooth launch. The velocity you just mentioned is very important, Rob. The velocity you just mentioned at separation of the telescope is very important. It will be slightly
Hey,
below.
Kims, Elku, Bex, Easy Breezy. Gail, how are you doing? Rebecca Mo, and Pterodactyl. Yeah, so let's pull up some information about the James Webb for us to read while we're going through this, because it's we're a little late to the party, so I'll catch y'all up on some information here. James Webb. There was actually some good information I was reading about the James Webb Telescope yesterday, and I had pinned it to be able to read through that with everybody, but didn't do it. Telescope. There's also a tracker, too. If anybody wants to track it over the next couple of months. Yeah, what's interesting about the James Webb Telescope is it's not actually going to be in orbit around the Earth like the Hubble is, It's actually going to be in orbit around the Sun. So it's actually going to be orbiting 1.5... you piece of garbage. 1.5 million kilometers or 1 million miles away from Earth at what's called the second Lagrange point. I wonder why they call it that.
18.5 minutes into the flight.
You can feel the tension there. It's more like you could probably feel that they probably haven't slept much in a month. And it's Christmas, and they're all forced to work and launch a $10 billion telescope into space. So they're very stressed and probably incredibly grumpy.
Officials all watching telemetry very carefully.
So what's special about the orbit that they're going is that it's that it lets the telescope stay in line with the Earth as it moves around the sun. This allows the satellite's large sun shield to protect the telescope from light and heat and the sun, earth, and moon. So yeah, essentially the reason why they're doing this is because it'll be able to block out everything except for the giant freaking sun behind it, hence the massive sun shield, which
as we approach the 20-minute mark
is interesting.
Again, upper stage cutoff is scheduled at the 24-minute 51-second mark into the flight, about 5.5 minutes from now.
Interesting. So here, I can take up there's an animation that they have for the actual orbit, which is pretty cool.
As you said, Rob, we will have a short ballistic phase, a short coasting phase that will, when the upper stage will rely fully on its, what we call the attitude and roll control system. And it will adjust its attitude so that during this so small ballistic phase, all the requirements from the telescope are fully met, and that at the separation, when there will be the separation, the conditions will be.
How will it not melt though? Okay, so let me rephrase this. So it's not it's not going in orbit closer to the sun. It's actually going farther away from Earth, so about 1 million miles away from Earth and farther from the sun. So that way it's past the Earth and the moon in orbit, and then it's actually orbiting the sun, but just super far away from Earth. It's like basically like a. Let me bring up the animation here, if I can. Window capture. Face go. What the hell just happened? Okay, well that's weird. Very strange. There we go. So it's in a safe zone? Yeah. It's in a pretty safe zone. There's the here's the orbit. My computer's just having a stroke today. There. It's interesting that it's in this like wobbly orbit though. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. Was that how they just decided to show it? Or is it actually going to be like... Oh, no. I don't exactly know why it does that. But I don't get paid tons of money to figure that out. I'm assuming so it's never on... So it's only like kind of facing the Earth and the sun. No, because that doesn't make any sense either. So I don't exactly know. But yeah, so essentially that shield blocks all the light from the sun, and it's constantly pointed out, you know, away from the sun, and then goes in this wobbly trajectory. Maybe there's somebody with bigger brains in chat than me that knows why it's doing that, but I don't. Get the James Webb launch back.
For the end of the flight and the last part of the upper stage flight and the separation of the telescope.
James Webb is about 4 minutes away from separating from the upper stage. And again, at that point, it will be on its own. And again, those milestones that we discussed a bit earlier in the broadcast will begin to be followed carefully by
the most important question of all: can it photograph Uranus?
Mission operations,
no, it can't.
Center
Uranus
Mach,
too
as it's
small.
called, at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore. One minute of powered flight remaining.
Is it already en route? Yeah. So we're 23 minutes into launch so far. And
the stage continues to function perfectly. It's been a smooth ride for the James Webb Space Telescope.
Like that guy is knowing exactly what chat's asking. Well done. Guy Labney, thank you for the 11 months. Merry Christmas to Tag and all the fam. Merry Christmas to all of you as well. Thank you to everybody who came to hang out early this morning to watch the James Webb Telescope launch with us. Y'all are wonderful humans. Happy holidays to you wonderful beings.
That
so right now
was loaded pre-flight this morning with 15 tons of propellant for this long 16-minute burn. Now about 30 seconds away from upper stage cutoff.
I was literally about to say that the upper stage should be cutting off here any second, and I was close. That's what that little line should be. So we should see it separate, the telescope separate from there, and then it's going to
standing by for upper stage
it's
shutdown.
a million-mile journey.
The cutoff of the upper stage engine.
There we go. The unfolding process is really the scary part. Getting close to where we're going to pick up tracking from another spot on the Earth.
Extinction of the shut-off of the cutoff of the engine was confirmed exactly as expected, with the exactly expected altitude and speed and velocity. So now we have entered the coasting phase, the ballistic phase, that will last for a little more than 2 minutes.
I was going to see if
the telescope controllers,
Dustin wanted to join. I meant to ask him last night.
That all of the function parameters for the James Webb Space Telescope have been loaded on board the telescope. We are expecting Webb separation at the 27-minute 7-second mark here into the flight.
So we've got about 1 minute and 7 seconds until James Webb fully separates.
Will push Webb away from the upper stage of the Ariane 5. As it moves further and further away from the upper stage, there'll be what we refer to as a collision avoidance maneuver.
Yes, Rob, exactly. The springs already will give some distancing, of course, between the two objects, between the telescope and the upper stage. And then the upper stage will leave the trajectory of the telescope and makes a special maneuver to pass the telescope and heads towards a liberation orbit and leaves the telescope on its orbit without any risk of collision and without any risk of pollution towards the telescope.
So in other words, they're going to be launching the
and we're about 17 seconds
the
away
final
from
stage
Webb
into space
separation.
and just leaving some garbage in space because humans are garbage people. And then the James Webb Space Telescope continues to also launch itself into space, which is great. Nearly midnight at the butt of Earth. Why are you be awakey? I don't know. There's something obviously on screen that has kept us awake. I don't think I can give you a better reason than this. There we go. That's the moment we were waiting for. Successful separation. So the two of the like most sketchy parts is the separation to make sure that
of observatory separation.
the observatory didn't
James
crash
Webb
into the final
Space
stage,
Telescope amidst applause here in the Mission
and
Control
then the
Center,
unfolding
now
process.
taking its first steps in pursuit of cosmological discovery.
Like, I know a lot of you don't know
It was
like
a
how
perfect
big of
ride
a
to
step
orbit,
this is for like understanding the universe, but this is like a massive step
and all of the
for humans to
separation
really
sequence
understand our
events are
place
running in good
in the
fashion,
universe.
according to the telescope controllers.
and to possibly even learn about new physics and stuff and things that we don't quite
And there
understand.
is the view from the upper stage camera on the Ariane 5 looking at the James Webb Space Telescope as it
That's
moves
so cool.
Gently away from its launch vehicle.
It's not the best live feed ever, but that's the actual James Webb Telescope being separated from the final stage.
Fantastic pictures of this telescope.
Go Webb, go Webb.
Yes, go Webb.
Yes, go Webb. She's so excited.
Ironically enough, as we marvel on this view from the upper stage camera, this will be humanity's last view of the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves to its workplace about 1 million miles away from Earth.
Yes, you're right, Rob. Impressive, fantastic pictures. Yeah.
Now we'll be hearing shortly from the Mission Operations Manager at the Space Telescope Science Institute, Carl Starr, who will be calling out the procedures that will lead to the deployment of Webb's solar array.
Oh, there it is. It's starting to deploy. So that's good. So we're going to see it kind of
Down,
grow. This
in
thing
the
is
fishbowl,
massive.
where there is
The fact that they were able to
jubilation,
pack
let's
this
go to
onto a
Raphael,
rocket is
Chevrier
just
of Ariane
amazing.
Space. And before we do that, Raphael, a bit earlier than planned, but there is the solar array having been deployed. James Webb now has its array out as we stand by for confirmation that it is power positive.
Hey, Rob.
I can't tell if those are excited sounds in the background or panicking sounds.
J'entends pas ce qu'il me dit. Pardon. Il m'a appelé ou pas? Il m'a appelé ou pas, Rob?
Kind of sounds like panicking sounds.
And there it is. There's your critical call. James Webb not only has legs, but it has power.
Okay, good.
As it begins its journey. And
I was getting
commissioning
nervous for a
activities to
second.
follow. And with that, let's go down to the floor in the fishbowl and Raphael Chevrier of Ariane Space.
This is it. We have witnessed and the confirmation that Ariane 5 have safely delivered Webb into space. The upper stage is now being placed on a safe escape orbit around the Sun, but honestly, I've got to tell you that these images are absolutely incredible, and well, it may be the end of the mission for Ariane Space, but it's only the beginning of the journey for Webb. It's now on its way to the Lagrange point. Congratulations to all the team involved in the flight. Really, there is no words to describe the immersion that is happening right now in the fishbowl.
So, very good news. Everything worked really well. It's now on its way 1 million miles away from Earth to enter its orbit in Lagrange point, or L2 as it's called. So one of the things that the James Webb Telescope is going to be doing is it's packed with some infrared technology that's not available on the Hubble telescope. And we're only able to see so far back in time, like to like the origins of the universe and the Big Bang. And one of the things that James Webb is going to be able to do is to actually image and study and analyze, these first 100 million years of our universe. We have just like a limit to how far back we can see. And the James Webb is theoretically going to see as far back to like basically an extra 100 million years into the past. I forget exactly what the time is, but to look at some of these, like the first galaxies that ever formed after the Big Bang. So we'll really get a better understanding at the initial formation of our universe. And there's been a lot of findings that, galaxies are a lot bigger and things are a lot stranger than we anticipated the farther that we go back. But we have not been able to go super far back. This looks complicated. Yeah, it's too early for me to be doing all these big brain things. Yeah, James Webb Telescope is going to be studying, you know, the very beginnings of our universe, which is really, really cool. Let's see here. How far back will James Webb be able to see? So let's see here. So if memory serves, the James Webb Telescope will be able to look about 13.5 billion years into the past. Because when the farther you're looking, and the light that you're capturing, you know, if we're capturing a light from a galaxy that's like 13.5 billion light years away, then we're actually imaging that in its state 13.5 billion years ago, because that's how long it took for that light to actually get to us. So when we're looking at something like that, we're looking at it as it was towards the creation of our universe, which is freaking insane to think about. And it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around a little bit. But the capabilities of this telescope will far outweigh anything that we've been able to study the universe with until this point. When did your kiddos wake up? They're still asleep. How was my trip home? It was a very long trip. I spent, you know, 12 hours on planes yesterday, or in airports, rather.
Mission controllers have done a fantastic job. It was an utterly flawless launch. From the European Spaceport here on the equator in the Amazon rainforest. Hoping to go over now to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson to get some reaction from him.
So we're figuratively going back in time, but quite literally looking back in time. Because we can look back in time, we just can't go back in time. Like when I image things of stuff in space, like my last image, the Wizard Nebula, like this photo, everything inside, well, not everything inside this photo, but the area that I photographed, the Wizard Nebula itself, is 7,200 light years away. And I'm actually imaging that as it was 7,200 years ago and not as it currently is now, because, you know, the light that we're getting now has had to travel that amount of time. And it'll take another 7,000 years until we can actually see what it looks like right now. Aparama, thank you so much for becoming a member. Welcome back to the community. When Cassini saw the 2-mile-high ice mountains in the rings of Saturn, my mind exploded. There are so many cool things out there. I cannot wait until... We'll have to live stream like the first images coming in from the James Webb Telescope. I don't think there's going to be too much more information that they're going to share from the launch. I wanted to start a lot earlier, but glad we got to live stream a little of it this morning. But I do hope, I mean, we can hang out and talk, or we can let everybody go do their Christmas stuff. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas from the East Coast. Thank you, Mistress. You're having a wonderful day. Space is just so fascinating. Yeah, we're going to learn more about... It's going to take about 4 months for it to fully cool and unfold. It's going to be operating at a temperature of like negative 325 degrees Celsius or something like that. Super duper cold. Also known as super duper cold. And it needs to be this cold because it's going to be measuring heat signals and stuff like that. And infrared. So it needs to be about as cold as possible to pick up these really faint heat signatures. At least they look happy now. Then they can go, you know, celebrate Christmas and whatnot. I used the Apache Point Observatory for infrared brown dwarf studies this past semester. So I'm really excited to see what new things we can learn from infrared using the James Webb Space Telescope. Maddie, that is awesome. Super duper cool. These are tech terms, folks. I mean, it gets the point across, right? Now they can go get hammered. Yeah, here we'll have a shot to celebrate for them the successful launch. Like they dropped this. What, like a month ago, they dropped a $10 billion satellite. They dropped it. And they had technical issues up until about a week ago. So the fact that they were finally able to get this launch, it was supposed to launch back in 2011. And it's just been delayed and things have been added to it. And it's just been this monumental project. Like, it's really hard to describe, like, the effort that's gone into this, and the amount of information we'll be able to get from this. Like, this could very well lead to, like, a new understanding of physics and, you know, how the universe works. You know, which is really important for us. This guy does not seem very excited.
And over 3 decades, you've produced this telescope that is now going to take us back in time. It's a time machine. It's going to take us back to the very beginnings of the universe. We are going to discover incredible things that we never imagined. And isn't that typical of this team, where the impossible comes possible? I can't thank you enough on behalf of a grateful United States government. I can't thank our...
I mean, maybe we'll confirm if we're in a simulation or not, you know? Yeah, so how far back will James Webb be able to see? There we go. Go back into this kind of thing here. Read through this little document if we still want to hang out a little bit this morning. So the James... Man, I wish my mouse wouldn't pop up on the screen. Here, you know what? I'll just pop this up while we're... looking through this anyways. There we go. So the James Webb Telescope set to launch in the coming days, which it just did. We'll be able to look more than 13.5 billion years in time to see the faint infrared light from the first galaxies, revealing a previously unseen era of cosmic history that shaped the universe today. It's a cosmic time machine capable of seeing galaxies and stars as they were as few as 100 million years after the Big Bang, an unimaginably violent genesis of the universe. So... like, imagine, you know, after the Big Bang, for those that believe in the Big Bang and all that fun stuff, just the sheer amount of violence and I don't know how to describe it, just the sheer amount of stuff in the universe being formed. Just so much information to be gleaned there. It's like, we won't be able to look back until the very moments of the Big Bang, but we'll be able to get tantalizingly close. Like 100 million years in the grand scheme of, like, you know, 13.5 billion years is pretty darn close to what we believe to be the beginning of the universe, you know? Reading and typing in chat without glasses. This telescope is so powerful that if you were a bumblebee 240,000 miles away, which is the distance between Earth and the moon. So if you were a bumblebee sitting on the moon from Earth, we will be able to see you, which is stupid. Like, the fact that you can see that is insane. Like, you can barely see a bumblebee a couple feet away from you as a human. Am I dreaming? Merry Karmugtagalicious. I haven't even slept yet and you're live? Oh my god, Urbo, what have you been doing? We don't need to know what you've been doing, Urbo. Oh my god. Urbo out here partying, getting turnt. So what we're going to do with this great giant telescope, we're going to look at everything there is in the universe that we can see. I want to know what the life cycle of the telescope is supposed to be. I don't know if they go over it here. Yeah. that runs the gamut from the most distant galaxies in the cosmos to planets, moons, asteroids, and comets in our own solar system. We'll be able to observe everything from Mars out, seeing details undetected by every other space observatory since Galileo revolutionized astronomy with his first telescope in 1609. Want to know how did we get here, the Big Bang, how did it work? So we'll look and have ideas and have predictions, but we honestly don't know. This is once in a generation event. I don't know if it shows the life cycle. Yeah, it doesn't show the life cycle of the telescope, but yeah, super duper cool stuff. The most scientific terms you could use.
Indeed, what a Christmas
10 years? It'll probably operate longer than 10 years, though.
Guiana Space Center. We really want to thank NASA for its trust. The administrator, Bill Nelson. We have with us Thomas Zoburon and all his team. And our first thoughts are going to NASA. It is a journey of 20 years we have made together. We have worked as hell, I would say.
There's two people talking at the same time, so that's not very pleasant to listen to. We'll just float in space forever now, though, even when it stops working. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because it's so far from Earth. Like, I don't know if they're going to crash it into a planet like they've done with other satellites, or if or they'll just let it crash into the sun, or what they'll end up doing with it. Or in 10 years, they might be able to fly something out to make it live longer, or repurpose it, or something. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, that kind of gets us to the end of the telescope launch. Is 8 a.m. too early for mimosas? I don't think it's ever too early for mimosas. Let's crash it into another planet and start putting our garbage everywhere. I mean, we do that all the time already. Humans are literally just disgusting creatures. Like, aliens will probably find us and look at these nasty trash pandas, not only destroying their own planet, but just littering all of their garbage all over space. Like, they would not want us to leave our solar system just due to the fact that we would destroy everything we touch. We would just leave our trash and garbage everywhere. It's like, we'd probably just give all of the aliens in space all of our diseases because we're so filthy, and they would just wipe us off the face of the universe. Super pleasant talks. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me, you wonderful humans. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Or if you've already had a wonderful Christmas, I hope it was great. But we will be live streaming later today because I know that there's people that have gone into lockdown. There's a lot of people who weren't able to go see family. So we will be live streaming a lot today, but not until a little bit later. We'll keep y'all company, but I'm going to get some food. I'll probably wake up and do some stuff with the family, cook some breakfast. And then we'll be back live streaming various games today and try and keep y'all company. But I hope y'all have a fantastic day.